Chief Justice Raymond Zondo has lamented the lack of action by Parliament to prevent a repeat of state capture. His comments come exactly a year after he submitted his final report into the alleged looting of the state by politically connected individuals. Zondo maintains that rules and regulations need to change.
The topic that I've been asked to address, as I have indicated, is: has the capturing of the state placed our democracy at risk? The answer to the question is an unequivocal yes. However, it is necessary to start at the beginning. And the beginning is that when the Commission began its hearings, it invited two international experts on state capture to give evidence before it. Those were Professor Kaufman and Hellman, and they gave a definition of state capture that included that the state captors make illicit payments to government officials in order to get them to change the rules of the game or rules and regulations to advantage.
The Chief Justice says former President Jacob Zuma and the ANC enabled the capture of the state by the Guptas.
State capture that was pursued by the Guptas and their associates was anchored on the influence and control they had on the head of state, who was also the president of the ruling party, and ensured that he would engineer the removal from strategic positions in SOEs of persons who would not be prepared to cooperate with the Guptas in wrongdoing. And he would appoint to those strategic positions people who would cooperate with the Guptas and with those who had influence on him.
We're joined by Whistleblower House CEO Ben Theron. Ben, good evening to you. Thanks for your time. Of course, we have the opportunity now of reflecting over the year that this report has been released and the work that has been done from a prosecutorial point of view. What are your impressions of where we are right now with the prosecutions or lack thereof, really?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. We are disappointed, and remember, as much as we're going to talk about prosecutions, we need to talk about the legal environment as well. We are disappointed with the slow pace. We are disappointed with the fact that corrupt people have been put back in positions in Parliament. Today, the Chief Justice very specifically said Parliament is the custodian of our democracy, and they should protect South Africa and South Africans, the citizens of Africans. And they failed us dismally. He went further to say that if it had to happen today, Parliament will allow it because nothing has changed, and he begged Parliament to change. So what is happening is that the Parliament and the ruling party at the moment continue appointing people that have been accused of corruption without thinking of the future. So it is important that we look back at that and ask, why are those people back in positions when Justice Zondo at the time, the Deputy Chief Justice, made those accusations? They needed to be investigated, they needed to be prosecuted and brought to book.
We can't talk about the success of the work of the Commission without reflecting on the role of whistleblowers, because without the whistleblowers, none of the information that came to light in the way that it did would have, which enabled even just the investigations around state capture to begin. And yet, we still sit with a situation where many of those people are out in the cold. There's talk about better protection for whistleblowers, but we don't seem to be there yet.
We are still very far. As I'm sitting here today, the President promised last year that by the end of April, the documentation will be completed by the National Advisory Council. The minister, very recently, I think on the 30th of May, promised that in the course of June, there will be a research paper. Now, we've got to be very clear about what he promised. He did not promise a draft bill. He did not promise legislation. He said there's a research paper that will be released for comment. Now, that just tells me how slow the process is. The sad thing is, people are dying by the day. Whistleblowers are dying. People are being fired. This morning in one of the newspapers, they spoke about the whistleblower that's been fired, despite doing her job. She was just doing a job. She was a chief, she was a head of a department, and when the SIU was asked to do the investigations, she assisted them in providing information. She was fired last week. That is unacceptable. We cannot do this at the pace that we are currently doing because we need to address the shortcomings. And we are eagerly waiting for the release of that paper so we can contribute and make sure that whistleblowers are protected, both from a personal point of view as well as professional.
One of the big issues, of course, when we talk about accountability is that when you have an environment like we do around whistleblowers, it simply sends a message that when you're committed to the truth, when you're committed to integrity, it is a personal price and a personal decision whose consequences you have to be willing to live with, because the state certainly is not being seen to be on board when it comes to its support of resources and any other kind of support, really, that whistleblowers may require.
We live with the reality on a daily basis because whistleblowers approach us on a daily basis. And they are destitute. They are at their wits' end. People are suicidal because they don't know how to take care of their families. It is critical that the state steps in. One of the recommendations that Justice Zondo made in his report was the strengthening of the Witness Protection Act. And there's a distinction we need to make between witness protection and whistleblowers. But what Zondo said is, what Chief Justice Zondo said is, the Witness Protection Act and the Witness Protection Unit can be strengthened so they can take care of whistleblowers. Now, that would have been a very easy act to do for the minister or the president to enlarge that temporarily while you're attending to the legislation required. Nothing is happening. We are on the 22nd of June. On the 30th of May, the minister said the paper will release. There are 8 days left in June. I do not see that paper being released. We are hopeful, but I seriously doubt it. And in the meantime, people are suffering.
What message does that send to you, Ben?
What?
What message does it send to you?
The message it sends is that government is not serious about crime. Because if they're serious about crime, if they are serious about whistleblowers that support them fighting crime, action will be taken much quicker. Temporary action can be done while you sort out the legislation. The Whistleblower House deal with whistleblowers on a daily basis. And we are willing to accept more people. We are willing to support people. But funding is a problem. Now, government will have limited funding, but a lot more than what we can. And we can help. How difficult is it for government to ask us, please assist us in this regard? We are open. We are waiting. You asked me a question. How serious, what is the message that it is in? Government is not serious about whistleblowers. Government is not serious about fighting crime in South Africa. It's a sad reality.
So then, in the meantime, what do organizations like the one you represent do, Ben? Is it about relying on private donors, the private sector, people, ordinary South Africans who are genuinely committed to building a better country that then come on board to help some of these whistleblowers survive, and organizations like your own?
All the categories that you mentioned do support us. And we are very, very appreciative of that support that we get. And the more we get, the more we can support more whistleblowers. It's important that we continue doing this work. It's unbelievable the stories that we hear. It's unbelievable the emotions that you encounter while undertaking these things. But it's a job that we love. We believe in South Africa. We want to save South Africa. And in doing that, to do that, we need to support whistleblowers.
That is Ben Theron, CEO of the Whistleblower House. Thanks for your time tonight.